Welcome to the Disrupting Obesity podcast. I'm Charlotte Skanes, and I'll be sharing ways to regain control over your body and lose an extreme amount of weight naturally. Being fat is about so much more than just the food. It's about your relationship with food. That means that dealing with your weight is about more than just the food, too. You have to change that relationship. You have to start disrupting obesity. This is our second special Ask Whatever in a row. If you missed last week, make sure you give it a listen or a watch if you're joining me on YouTube. These are all questions that came in during the webinar that I did in October, and there wasn't enough time to get to them all or to answer them as fully as I wanted. So I promised that I'd take another run at them, and here we are. There is a lot to go over, so we're just going to skip the preamble and jump right in. What do you do when food is your best friend? How do you start breaking that relationship? Okay, so you don't break it, you change it. This isn't like a relationship where you can say goodbye and walk away. There's no walking away from food. Food is a lot of people's best friend. You couldn't be farther from alone with this one, and it's all right. There's nothing to be ashamed of or beat yourself up for. I want to answer this one by expanding on food as a friend a little bit. What if it really was a person and you had a toxic relationship with it? What would you do then? But remember, this is a friend that you're stuck with. You can't say goodbye and walk away. You have to find a way to work with them. Boundaries are probably where I would start. And like with any toxic relationship, you can't expect things to change overnight. There's no switch that you can flip here to go from one state of being into another. I wish it worked that way, but it doesn't. You're not going to change the nature of your relationship with your crazy stepsister overnight. And you're not going to do it with food either. You start by putting some boundaries, some limits in place. You tell your stepsister she can't stay past 1 a.m. anymore. And you tell your relationship with food you can't eat after 1 a.m. anymore. You set a boundary. You draw a line. It's a gradual process, and it's scary as hell. I didn't want a single damn thing about my relationship with food to change, except for my body and the way I felt about myself when I went off the rails or when I kept failing at getting my weight under control. As you make small incremental changes to what you're eating, the relationship is going to shift incrementally. I believe food still can be your friend, and you can get your weight under control. Friendships deepen, they evolve. This one can too. You find other things that fulfill the same purpose for you. I'm petrified of gaining the weight back. I've lost 60 so far, and I have 40 to 50 to go. You talk about losing, and I've used so many of those ideas, and they have helped me in my journey and have gotten me over humps. But what happens when we get there? How do we keep it off and not gain it back? You change your relationship with food. I know that's just a few words, but the answer is absolutely huge. My program is 500,000 words. That's how long it takes me to answer that question. You take the skills and strategies, the mindset you build while you lose your weight, and you apply them to maintaining your weight. While you're losing weight, you have to make sure you're not eating more than your body needs. It's the same when you're maintaining. You have to make sure that you're not taking in more calories than your body needs. You keep it off with the 3A way. You have to stay aware of what's going on with your body and with your relationship with food. Why are you making the choices you're making? I've been maintaining now for almost 7 years, and I maintained for more than that the first time. I still use food to emotional eat, to comfort, reward, and cope. Not the way I used to, not so I can overeat or binge. Because I'm aware that I'm eating to comfort, reward, or cope, I do it in a way that doesn't involve those things, the binging, the overeating. I'm more satisfied now with less. I don't believe that it's a good idea to think that you're going to walk away from emotional eating. That's not the goal. The goal is to manage it. And since you can't change what you can't see, that means you need to be really aware of what's going on with you, with your body, with the way that you're feeding it. I'm not saying you need to be obsessive. I'm saying you can't get to your goal weight and go right back to eating the way you were and blindly stumbling along. It's not going to work. 85% gain it back for a reason. You're not wrong to be petrified. I kind of feel like that's a good thing, though. It means you're aware of the risk. It's on your radar, so you're more likely to pause. And that's what we want. I want you taking a breath before you make your food choices and ask yourself, what's going on? Not denying yourself what you want, but taking a second to think about it and to find a way to make it work. The second A is acknowledgement. And it seems like you've got that part down at this stage. Hold on to it. Again, you don't have to be obsessive, but once you get there, get to your goal weight, it's very okay to remind yourself of why you don't want to go back and of how often that happens to other people. I do it all the time. It's the reason I keep getting on the scale. Firstly, I want to know where I'm at, but at the same time, I'm acknowledging that if I don't keep a handle on where my weight is, I can slip pretty quickly, and I don't want to do that. Accountability is the way I keep making good choices. I find balance. I still eat what I want, but what I want has shifted. I incorporate more nutrient dense foods now. I very rarely eat fried foods. I've got nothing against them, but they're a sometimes thing for me, not an all the time thing the way they used to be. And there's a bunch of stuff like that. Things I used to eat all the time: muffins, donuts, cake, chips, crackers, cold cuts, wieners. I still eat all of those things, but I don't want to gain my weight back. So my accountability is eating those things every so often, some more and some less than others, so I don't gain weight. And yes, I have a pretty big safety net. If I do gain weight, I will make my body sick. I can't handle it. I'm already asking an awful lot from my body, and there are parts of my recovery that just don't make sense. So I really don't want to push my luck too far. I can feel the guillotine above the back of my neck. But I'm just like everybody else, only on fast forward, right? Obesity is bad for everybody. It's a ticking time bomb no matter who you are. My clock just ticks faster. Right now, my diabetes is in check with diet and exercise. I'm insulin free and I really want to stay that way. That means I have to keep my weight down and I have to watch my diet. My diabetes, my kind of diabetes, responds really well to exercise too. A brisk walk is the fastest and most effective way that I've got to drop my blood sugar in a hurry. But remember that I have secondary diabetes, not type 1 or type 2, which is why I don't talk about this a ton. I know a lot of you are dealing with diabetes, and I don't want my journey with a type that only affects 1 to 2% of all diabetics to impact yours. I wish I had type 2. And I know how that sounds, but I was in denial, like very, very active denial about my diabetes when I first came home from the hospital and for a few years after. I was convinced that I did have type 2 and I was definitely going to beat it. I even convinced myself that I had beaten it. My sugars were good. I got off insulin. I was positive. I was just positive that I had it beat. And then I got sick again and my vision went because my blood sugar was out of control. And since then, I've had to come to terms with my diabetes. I'm not even going to blame a lack of awareness. Like, I really want to. I feel like nobody ever really sat me down and spelled it out for me. But when I look back on it, I can see that they were acting as though someone already had done that. Like really soon after I was discharged from my 5-month stint in the hospital, I went to this diabetes clinic that I was assigned to. And I never went back because they told me that they'd never seen anybody with my kind before. And they wanted me to go back and tell them what my doctor said. But the way they said it, I took it to mean that it was because of the way that I got it, like from the necrotizing pancreatitis, et cetera, all that shit. And they meant it literally. And they were assuming that somebody had told me I had secondary diabetes, and maybe somebody did, but I wasn't exactly firing on all cylinders. Like it was a lot for me to sit upright in a chair or eat without an IV or breathe without being on oxygen. I had a lot going on. So the differences in types of a disease that I desperately did not want to have, they weren't exactly registering with me. But the stuff with my eyes really freaked me out. So fast forward a little bit, I was in the hospital in 2022 with a pancreatic pseudocyst, and I woke up one afternoon and I couldn't read the sign at the foot of my bed anymore. I could see that the sign was still there, but it was too blurry to make out the words. So I was freaked the fuck out. I had to go back on insulin. I'm a big fan of seeing, like, a lot. I'm a really, really big fan. But my vision came back the way it had been. Um, and then a year later, right before my kidneys went nuts and I had a couple surgeries last year, it happened again. It wasn't as bad as the year before. We got it under control this time with an oral med. There was a brand new Gladys pharmacist. And she was convinced, just completely convinced, that it was not going to work. She got very confrontational about why I'd been prescribed it in the first place, and was actually pretty belligerent for somebody who was openly saying that she didn't know why I was taking it, but just kept saying over and over again why it wouldn't work for a type of diabetes that I don't have. She did give it to me, and I resisted the temptation to go back and let her know that it actually did work, just like my doctor believed that it would. So I'm lucky because I've got stuff like that to help me stay on track and keep me in the right headspace. But I feel like we all do. Like I said, my health stuff is just on fast forward. So it's okay to be scared. But I think your awareness just makes it more likely that you're going to be able to keep your weight off. You're going to be able to stay on top of things. Now, if you want more on maintaining your weight, check out episode 73, which was 9 ways to maintain your weight loss. How to keep staying positive when you've stalled for a few months and I'm slowly gaining it back. Saying don't give up isn't enough anymore. I think it's helpful to think in terms of desire. What do you want? It's okay to feel negative. That's the reality of the situation. This is hard. In some ways, losing weight is an inherently negative process. I mean, yeah, positive mental attitude is important. You know, I'm big on positivity, but a realistic mental attitude is important too. Positivity can be toxic, usually when it's in direct opposition to reality. Now, maybe it's because I drafted this late at night and I'm coming off of an insane week and I'm completely exhausted. Maybe it's because I've been mulling this question over for days and I'm trying to find the best way to come at it, but I feel like it needs a different kind of answer. So this one is outside of my usual box. But have you tried giving yourself a minute to process why you don't need to be positive about this all the time? Like, have you looked at the reasons you have for why this sucks and why it's hard, and just let yourself have it for a minute instead of trying to push it down with a positive mental attitude? It's okay. I remember being so frustrated it became rage. This isn't a shiny, happy walk in the park. Weight loss sucks for a wide variety of reasons. You're allowed to be upset about it. Accept that you don't have a choice and have a singular focus. Your focus, the thing you want, is to lose weight. You don't have to feel positive about it. You just have to focus on whatever the next thing, the thing that you have to do in that moment to get to your goal. That's what you need to focus on. Now, the webinar I did was a week before the episode 9 Ways to Keep Yourself Going came out. So I would definitely shift you in that direction. It's episode 72. And it's funny because that episode and the one that I just recommended in the last question were both already recorded when I did the webinar. They just hadn't aired yet. Does your program offer accountability? That is my greatest struggle. Starting and then quitting a few days later. I can always talk myself out of continuing. So my program doesn't, but my monthly membership does. When I was running the program through one-on-one coaching, I was the accountability, but I can't do the one-on-one coaching anymore, in large part because there just isn't enough of me to go around for the accountability piece. So even though the program is the exact same, it's still the same as it was when I took people through it one by one, it does not have an accountability segment, aside from the fact that you're getting 2 videos, a workbook, and a summary each week. All of those to keep you moving forward. That wasn't enough for me. I wasn't completely thrilled with that, though. I wanted to find a way to keep the accountability going. And part of my dream has always been to create a space for women to come together and talk about weight loss in a different way. So I created my monthly membership. I let the cat out of the bag about it during the webinar, so there's no point hiding it now. But it's not open at the moment. I opened it up to a very small group of people while I'm getting it fully formed, but I will be letting women in starting in the next few weeks. I'm going to be opening it up to the public, but it's a space for us to come together away from social media. and support each other. As I'm writing this, the membership is heading into our third week, and it's been amazing so far. As you're hearing this, we're heading into week 5. I'm loving getting to know everyone and talking in real time on our video chats and in the discussion spaces. I'm running challenges, and my entire content library is loaded into fully searchable and very handy playlists. I'm a little obsessed with the freedom that I have just because I own the space, right? So it's private. We're free to talk about things that we don't want our friends and family and coworkers and who knows whoever else to see on social media. I really don't think people realize how limited I am when it comes to what I can and can't say on social. So the freedom is just amazing. I Take Monjourno. Does that work with your program? Absolutely. The meds can help you get into a calorie deficit, which will help give you the space to do the real work of changing your relationship with food, which is something that the meds can't do. My podcast and my Instagram, the YouTube, all of that are really good resources, but I'm also only able to cover about 15, maybe 18% of what I go into in my program. So my answer is definitely yes. If you're finding this helpful, then there's nothing about taking any of the meds that would stop the program from helping you. It's all about doing the inner work to change your relationship with food while you're in a calorie deficit so that all of your weight comes off and stays off. I like to cook and struggle with calorie counts in what I cook. I know of recipe builders that will give the calories of the whole recipe or let you divide it up into servings, but do you know of any that will count out the calories per cup, ounce, tablespoon, etc.? I am really hoping we can crowdsource you an answer on this one because I don't know of one. My workaround with this is to build my recipes out as a single serving, and then I work out the calories per serving from there. And usually I start with a pen and a paper in my kitchen while I'm making the recipe, but I also have a very specific process because most of the time, if I'm calculating calories, it's for one of my cookbooks and I need to be precise. If I'm just cooking dinner, I don't need a super specific answer, or an answer at all, usually. I was told that the only way to lose weight and live was to amputate part of my stomach with weight loss surgery. I lost 165 pounds, but never got under 200. Close, but no dice. I feel like I'm doomed. Can I still lose weight and get to a healthy weight? I've gained just under 100 back. You're not doomed. Definitely not. It's okay. 85% of everybody gains their weight back. So it's not you, it's the system. Regain is hard for everybody though, period. It always sucks. I think it sucks especially hard for anyone who's dealing with gaining weight back after surgery. I'm not trying to take away from anyone else's experience, but specifically the weight loss surgeries, right? Like lots of people experience regain after just regular surgery, which also sucks. But after any of the weight loss specific surgeries, I think it must be absolutely devastating. So I'm really sorry. Like I genuinely am. I don't slam the surgeries. I don't see the point. I think it's very unfortunate that doctors don't do a better job highlighting the risks and the pitfalls and especially the recidivism rate because it's the same. It's not the food. It's the relationship with food. And in the exact same way that any other restrictive diet works, the surgeries force a deficit. So the weight falls off, but it's not an easy process. And it gets increasingly more difficult. And it's such a food focused process that there's not a lot of time or emotional space left to work on the relationship with food. I really hate how divided the weight loss community is. I hate the mainstream narrative that we're at each other's throats and that there's this us against them situation when it comes to the bariatric community and the quote unquote natural weight loss community. I don't like that word necessarily, but I don't know what else to use. I saw another post the other day and they were bashing the natural side for using that term. And I really, really wanted to comment and ask her, what term would you like us to use? Not to be an asshole, but as a legitimate question. What language should I use to describe my journey? Non-medically assisted weight loss? I feel like that would be even more offensive. So I'm not sure there's a win here. And I didn't end up asking because she was already mad and I didn't want to start a fight or make her feel attacked. At the end of the day, we all lose our weight the same way, a calorie deficit. That's why I'm such a fan of tracking. The only way to lose weight is to be in a deficit, with or without surgery or pills or shots or whatever. The only way to know you're in a deficit is to track what you're eating. That makes calorie tracking the only real weight loss shortcut out there. I gained back about 115 of my initial 201-pound loss. Gaining just under 100 pounds back dooms you to nothing other than the work you're going to have to do to get it off. But you can get it off and you can get below 200. Does anybody else absolutely hate people talking to you about your weight loss? It makes me extremely uncomfortable. I appreciate "you're looking great" or a similar comment, but I really dislike anything more. Yeah, lots of people hate it. Lots and lots. There are also just as many people who revel in it. And for some people, it just depends on where it's coming from. It's fine when your husband notices, but every time your stepsister opens her mouth to talk about it, you want to drown her. All good. It's okay to not want to talk about it and to not want other people to talk about it. It's also okay if you thought that you would be the kind of person who'd thrive on the attention and you've learned that you're not. Still fine. I was in the category where it depended on the source. I was fine talking about it with some people, and with others, yeah, it was beyond uncomfortable. I'd spent years hiding my body, doing everything I could do to draw attention away from my size. And whether that was with my personality or my purse, I was trying to hide my size. I thought people were judging me all the time. I didn't even let people watch me eat. I never wanted anyone to pay attention to my body. So it was very strange when people started talking about it. I didn't know how to handle it a lot of the time. So I got really brief. I'd say thank you and change the subject. Sometimes I'd just smile and nod. I was especially bad with confrontation back then. I'm not sure I'm much better at it now, but I don't remember telling people to stop or drawing a boundary beyond being visibly uncomfortable when people brought it up, which is a passive aggressive way of drawing boundaries, but it was all I had at the time. It's okay to hate it. You are definitely not alone. Have you gotten to the point where throwing down a lot of food isn't appealing anymore? When I'm very consistent in a deficit, I still feel like it's in the back of my head that I would like to just go wild, even if I know it would make me uncomfy and not get me to my goals. Even if I'm not doing that, the noise seems incessant. Yeah, absolutely. I can't physically eat the quantities I used to, and I don't want to anymore. I do have moments. I definitely have overeaten, but the noise changes. I also know that things are going to balance out. The week before my period, I have days where I probably take down nearly double the amount of calories I'll have the week after my period. I've also spent 15 plus total years maintaining. I've had a lot of practice and I trust the process. And I did the work and found the pattern between the type of eating I do based on what my body's cyclic needs are and what I need emotionally while I move through the cycle. My body and I have got this down. You're going to get there too. Here's a big thing to keep in mind. Going wild is very relative. Going wild for me used to look like a half a loaf of garlic bread with cheese, a pound of wings, most of a large pizza, something for dessert, and a couple liters of cola to wash it all down. Going wild now looks like 2 pieces of garlic bread, 3 or 4 wings, and 3 or 4 slices. And that's like the really pushing it, completely going nuts, right? But it's double what I normally would have. So my new going wild is kind of the equivalent to the old one, right? As you lose weight, you're going to lose the physical capacity to eat the way you used to. You're going to get super uncomfy sooner. And it's going to take less food to feel like you're going wild mentally because you're not used to eating the way that you used to eat. And really, it's probably going to happen. You'll have moments where it feels like you went wild. It's okay. If it does happen, pay attention to how it feels and how you're feeling afterwards. That's going to help slow you down the next time that you're tempted to go off the rails. I worry that my 500 calorie deficit may have to dip dangerously low at some point. Senior women are advised lower daily calories than younger gals. Just curious. I need more information on this one. And it's because of the 1200 calorie pushback, right? Pendulums swing. We go from one extreme to another until we finally settle into some middle ground for a very long time, like way too long, very long time. Doctors told basically every single person who needed to lose weight that they should eat 1200 calories a day. It's lunacy. And we can all see how well that worked, right? It was a shitty plan. It didn't work at all. Obesity rates are completely out of control. Pendulum swings. 1200 calories is unreasonable for most people. I'm 5'2" and I weigh 137 pounds. My TDEE is just over 1700. So to be in a deficit, I need to drop to 1200 and change. But I'm in range for my BMI, right? And I went off on this a couple of weeks ago, Gladys. I don't want to hear it. BMI is not a perfect system. I got it. It's the system that we have and it works for me. I feel noticeably different when I'm out of range, and not in a good way. I also have diabetes and the missing parts of my pancreas and all that other stuff going on. All I have to do is say BMI, and I know I'm waving a red flag. So yeah, I'm playing the pancreas card. I know all about the athletes who are in the obese range, and it's totally ridiculous because they're just muscular. They're also fit and generally healthy otherwise. I am not. BMI is a tool that I need. I'm not a wrestler or a bodybuilder or a soccer player. I'm just a regular person, the kind these tests were designed for. So I'm going to keep rolling on it because it's working out very well for me. We now recognize that we generally recognize that the blanket prescription of 1200 calories, whether you're 5'5" and 280 or 6'2" and 400, is a really bad idea. It's a bad idea for just about everybody. Unless you're short-ish and close-ish to your goal weight. So I need more information to answer because I don't know how old you are or how tall you are or how much you weigh. Is once a week weighing the best way to weigh yourself when trying to lose weight? Yep. Period. Yes is a full sentence all by itself. It is the ideal way. Maintaining can be a whole other kettle of kittens. But when you're losing just one time every 7 days, preferably the same time, it doesn't matter what time, so long as you're consistent about it. Anything more than once a week and you will make yourself crazy and defeated watching that number go up one day and down the next. It's a shortcut to discouragement, Bill. Anything less than once a week and you don't have the awareness that you need. How often should you recalculate your calorie intake needs? So your app is going to do that for you automatically as you update your weight each week. If you're doing this manually, my answer kind of depends on where you're starting at, but every 10 pounds for sure. What is in your disruptor book? Can it be used by itself or only with your program? Disruptor is a weight loss strategy workbook. It's designed to help you stay focused on your weight loss journey. It's just a weekly companion for 53 weeks. I walk you through getting started, setting micro and macro weight loss goals. There are checklists and reminders as you move towards your goal weight. There are pages for your weekly weigh-ins and pages to cross off each pound as you lose it. It has monthly charts for your measurements. And each week there's a page to track your daily water, your tracking, and whether or not you hit your daily calorie targets. There's also a bit of motivation from me and a spot to track your weight loss each week. The people in my program love it, but I released it to everybody because you definitely don't have to be in my program to use it. It can absolutely be used on its own, and you can find it on Amazon if you search Disruptor and my name, Charlotte Skanes. If you'd like some of my free resources, you can grab a copy of my guide to get started for the last time, and you can get your free worksheets and a replay of my webinar through the links in the notes. You can also find links to the program and the episodes that we talked about today. Thank you for listening or watching if you're with me on YouTube. Please consider subscribing. It really does help me be able to keep going. I hope you have an amazing week. Keep trying, keep tracking. Don't be intimidated and don't give up. You've totally got this. Thank you for listening to Disrupting Obesity with Charlotte Skanes. If you know it's time to take back control, lose the weight, and keep it off, reach out to me privately with a direct message on Instagram that says ready so you can start disrupting obesity.